September 19th. Cheryl, would you mind calling the roll for us?
Looks like online we have Andrew Chorney, Chris Lounsbury, Juniper Davis, Kyla Leonards, Martin Kidston, and Kat. And in the room, we have Kaylee Becker, Gary Powers, myself, Cheryl Hartman, Dylan Jacks, and Allison Friends, Commissioner Strohmeyer, and Commissioner Vero.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment on items not on this agenda? Seeing none, we will move right into the consent agenda. Anything that we want to pull off of here and discuss further?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I will second that. Any further discussion or public comment? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we've got two action items today. The first brought to us by Kaylee Becker. It's related to Marshall Mountain Park. Hi.
I'm happy to go over this first. I just want to call out that I was going to give a little bit of a fuller explanation update. So if you wanted to kick my item till the end to not make anybody else wait, feel free.
Well, there's nothing else.
Well, we can do this real quickly right here. The next one.
Yeah, certainly. Is there anyone here to hear about Jeanette Smith?
Other than Kyla?
Well, let's dispense with it immediately. So item 2, this is Kyla. There we go. Talk to us about this firm on the Sealy Lake Community Council.
Sure. So we've had an outstanding vacancy on the Sealy Lake Community Council. We've had one new applicant, Jeanette Smith. So this would just be for Jeanette to fill the remainder of the vacant term, which is through May 31st, 2025 to the Sealy Lake Community Council.
Okay.
Oops. Oh, sorry. Oh. Is this better?
Still blocking.
Kaylee. It's still blocking. Sorry. Oh my God. Never brought the flowers. There we go. I'm really excited about Jeanette Smith, and yeah, thrilled that she threw her hat in the ring. I think she'd be a great addition to the community council.
Okay, I think that's a motion. I'll second.
But that is a motion. You're right.
Any further discussion or public comment on this? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, back to you, Kaylee.
Great, thank you.
You have 55 minutes.
I guarantee you I'm not planning on talking for 50 minutes. So thank you for taking the extra time today. I know that you don't always have it on your agenda, so it's really helpful. The item before you today is pretty straightforward. It's opening a public comment period for the 2 weeks prior to the joint city-county hearing that's scheduled for October 4th at 3 o'clock at the public library. And that hearing is on the open space bond request for Marshall Mountain. So that's the discrete item on the admin agenda. But the fuller update I wanted to give is about the project as a whole, outside of or in addition to just this open space bond funding request. So due to the separate advisory boards and processes, the various aspects of this larger proposed Marshall Mountain Park project have been moving through these parallel but slightly separate processes. Though they've been worked on cohesively by city and county staff throughout. And we kind of think about these categories as acquisition and operations and management and partnerships. So first I'll talk about the acquisition. So this includes securing funding and completing due diligence related to the acquisition of 3 separate parcels, each 160 acres. And so this really constitutes 3 separate land transactions because each parcel is owned by a different entity owner. So as a status update on that, the majority of the due diligence work is complete on those 3 transactions. We still have final pieces to work through, but it's all been going well, and we have not come up to any big roadblocks or red flags. So that's good news. We've been working on securing funding, and that funding we've been working on is through private fundraising, federal grants, state grants, and other private grants. And so the final, and we're happy to, just remind everybody that we were able to secure a number of those grants. So that includes the $600,000 grant through the Community Forest Program, which is the federal funding through the Forest Service. We just found out through a partnership with a partner group, they and we, because we all work together, secured $40,000 through a private grant from the Conservation Alliance. And then the final piece of this fundraising is the open space bond request that's moving forward. So as a reminder, that would be what is going at that October 4th hearing. So the request is for $1 million from the county's share of the open space bond. And that would, on the county side, come from a mix of the 2006 open space bond, basically using the remaining amount of the 2006 open space bond, and then using a portion of the 2018 open space bond. And in the parallel request that's moving forward is $1 million from the city's share of the 2018 open space bond. And so the 2 advisory committees that—
I'm sorry, how much in the 2006 and the 2018 are we using?
Yeah, so roughly it would be about $400,000 from the 06 bond, the county share that would close out the county share of the 06 bond, and then the remaining approximately $600,000 would come from the 2018 open space bond, the county share.
And is this I don't want to get sidetracked, I'm sorry, but I was just trying to think that this is like the first.
This would be
the first portion of the 2018
from the county share.
Yeah.
Yep, it would be the first expenditure.
Yep, thanks.
Yep, good question. And so the 2 advisory committees that are part of this vetting process for the open space bond, the city side, the Open Space Advisory Committee, and the county side, the Open Lands Committee, they have both, they met jointly over 2 months this summer, and each committee recommended approval of the full request to their respective governing body. And so these recommendations and staff recommendations would then go forward to the October 4th hearing, which is the joint hearing where each entity, city and county, would vote on whether or not to use this open space bond funding for the acquisition. And I want to call this out because this does get a little confusing how we parse things out, but that October 4th hearing, the decision is solely related to funding to support the acquisition. The larger decision on whether the county will take on long-term ownership, management operations with support from the city will happen at a hearing in November. So just slight distinction. Bond funding decision is about funding to support the acquisition of the parcels. So that's
at the October 4th meeting. Maybe you've planned this already, but would you be able to put together a flow chart that would
great idea.
show visually the steps and where we are at and what is yet?
That is a great idea. I am working on that slide, and I will make it a flow chart because that would be very helpful.
Martin, is there any other suggestions you might have for what would be helpful for you for the October 4th meeting?
I like flow charts.
Okay.
They're good.
And Kaylee, just to clarify too, the open space bonds are going to be on people's tax bills this fall, right? Regardless of whether city and county approve Marshall Mountain as a project.
Thank you. That's a very good clarification. So as a reminder, these 2 open space bonds were the county that went to the, voters and were voted in by in 2006 and in 2018. So they're dedicated funding that is there to be used for conservation of natural resources, open spaces, and that bond funding can only be used on acquiring land or interests in land.
I think the question though is when it will hit the tax rolls.
Yes.
Is that at some future date or in the tax bill that folks will get the next one that will come in the mail?
Yeah, and so that's a good question. That is a good clarification that the bond funding, whether or not it's expended on this particular project, would would still be on the tax
Well,
bills at points.
let me take another run at this.
Yeah.
So this, the many millions, like the 7.5 million of the counties or the cities for that matter, there has to be, and maybe Chris, you could
The release of bonds.
answer this. So folks are not, even though this money has been authorized by the voters of Missoula County, bonds have not been sold yet for the entirety of this, and you are not seeing that entirety on your tax bills right now. Or Andrew.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bonds have been sold. You're already seeing the debt service on your tax bill, and you have been for what, 2 years already?
For the entire 15 million or 7.5 million of the counties?
Excuse me, we have not, there's a portion we haven't issued. That's right. Are we issuing more for this, Kaylee?
No, we do not need to issue more to cover this expenditure that's already been issued.
Okay, so whatever people are paying right now is adequate to cover
Right.
what will be expended for the acquisition of Marshall Mountain. Okay, excellent.
Thank you.
And even if that expenditure didn't happen, they'd still be paying it. It would be
Yes,
for some other project
or for
or
no product.
or for no project. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, thank you. Very good clarifications. So.
You want to re-clarify again?
No, it was enough. So with that, I'd like to move on to talking about the operations management and partnerships piece of this. And so that will be talking about the proposed model for operations and management, the relationship between city and county and the various partners that are part of this larger project. So first, the Marshall Mountain Conceptual Master Plan. So as many may remember, this is a plan that has been in the works over the last roughly year and a half. And the final comment period on that draft plan was this summer. And the city and county are currently working to finalize the plan, and that would hopefully happen this fall. And I just want to emphasize too with that conceptual master plan that it's had a really high level of engagements over the course of the last year and a half or so. There have been participation from about 93 focus groups and stakeholder meetings, over 20,000 website visits, and over 2,000 survey responses. So it's been a very robust process. And so some of the goals of the master plan is providing that conceptual recommendations for how to protect Marshall Mountain as a public park and improve recreation opportunities and resource conservation. It establishes those guiding principles, community vision, goals, and values for the site, and starts to lay out that prioritization and phasing of potential improvements. And so one thing I just want to note that we all are on the same page is the conceptual master plan is just that, but it is not a management plan. It is one piece of the decision-making framework that will guide the larger management operations of the parcels, in addition to things like financial constraints and capacity, and a larger management plan that will be done for the site as well. And so getting to the proposal for how the county would be the proposal for operating and management in partnership with city and partner groups. So we all understand that the parcels, 2 of the parcels have been open to the public through a lease agreement with the city, and the city has, Parks and Rec has been a part of that, managing events and public access. And the proposal for this partnership is that would transition over the first year to go from the city being the primary lead on those pieces to the county. And so then with that, the proposal is the county would be lead on operations and maintenance, with the costs split between the city and county. And I want to emphasize too that with that, there'd be continued support through those partnerships with local nonprofits, state and federal agencies, and tribes. And the city would continue to provide programming, and there could be additional programming provided by the county, but the city would absolutely be the lead on that recreation programming that they have been doing, and they are doing very well. And so for this piece of it, this operations management partnerships, this is when I talk about those parallel tracks before of how things have been talked about and vetted. Much of this has been vetted through the County Parks and Trails Board, and that's been happening consistently at their monthly meetings over the last 9 months with updates about each of these items, and they've made a few votes. And then at this September meeting, so the Parks and Trails Board meeting on Thursday, they will have an item on their agenda where they will be able to make a recommendation regarding long-term ownership, operations, and management regarding Marshall Mountain. And so this relationship between the city and the county on maintenance and operations would be established through an interlocal agreement, and that is currently being drafted. So just getting updates on my phone, sorry. So this interlocal would outline needed resources and responsibilities for long-term, mutual benefits and to the general public in each organization. And in addition, this it would establish costs and how costs would be split between city and county. So on that note, the estimated operational cost for Marshall Mountain is approximately $400,000 per year, and this is based on projections from staff and consultants for comprehensive management. And this is the part that would be split between city and county. And I want to be really clear that that comprehensive management includes things such as operations and maintenance, which I've been talking about, as well as things like event permitting, contracting, budgeting, implementation of the master plan. So it really is comprehensive. And we will work to find opportunities for cost recovery through things such as event permit fees, grants, volunteers, and partnerships. And as I mentioned, this is part of that larger comprehensive management and those relationships and some of those recommendations. That's part of what's being discussed at the meeting for Thursday for the Parks and Trails Board, some of that framework. And then again, for the interlocal, those discussions are still happening. So looking forward to past the October 4th hearing on the open space bond, there will be a hearing in November, and that is where with the Board of County Commissioners. And that is where the Board of County Commissioners would consider together long-term ownership of Marshall Mountain, adopting an interlocal with the city, and finalizing the conceptual master plan. Okay. That's it. That's my update.
Okay. Martin, any questions from you today?
I just want to make sure I understand. So the operating costs, you estimate at $400,000, and you believe that perhaps you can recover some of that cost through programming. Was that correct?
Yeah, so I want to be clear again that, yeah, that's the approximate 400,000 per year, which is again based on those projections from staff and consultants. And it's for the whole shebang, that comprehensive management. And yes, the idea would be that we would be continually looking for cost recovery opportunities through event permit fees, grants, volunteers, partnerships.
And that comprehensive management, that's everything from like natural resource management and the kind of recreation component as well. It's whether it's stream restoration or
emptying garbage cans, doing forest thinning, all of those pieces, as well as we know that there are a lot of events that happen and things that have to be, permitted and worked through for events. And so all of that piece is part of it. Yep.
And whatever residual amount is not recovered through cost recovery would be split evenly between the city and the county, or
would be split between the city and the county, and the specifics of that
yet to be determined.
Right, that's all still being discussed, and it will be established in that interlocal that would be before the county commissioners in November.
Hey, Kayla, can I have one more question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Katie. So the decision on October to expend the open space bond funding will take place at the library, but then the county will decide a month later on whether to actually go forward with the purchase. So we're talking about two separate meetings, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thanks.
And the November 4th is also a special meeting at the library, or is it going to be a?
The October 4th meeting is the special meeting held at the library with the city council. But the November hearing would likely be just a regular Thursday public Board of County Commissioners meeting.
November 9th.
Thank you.
Maybe we haven't established a firm date for that. It could be November 9th or it could be later in the month. Yeah. Depending on scheduling. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone?
Just going back to the operations costs.
Yes.
Real quick. That would be if we did kind of like the full build out of what's in the master plan, right? That's not necessarily the big next step, or can you just clarify?
I am pretty sure that yes, that 400,000, that's not thinking about full build out. That's kind of the level at which we would foresee you developing, have what the infrastructure that would be there and then within the next few years. So not quite exactly as it is now, because we all know there are initial things that have to happen.
Thank you.
Right.
Yep.
Kind of like baseline moving forward.
Yeah, that's a good way
Yes,
to
Martin.
describe it.
Yeah, sorry, I had one more question. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Are there any upfront costs such as, the lodge removal, the ski lift removal? Are there upfront costs that aren't included in that $400,000 value annually?
Yes, and I will specify that that's been accounted for as part of that open space bond request and the budgeting towards acquiring the property. So when and I know this it all starts to overlap, and so it gets hard to draw these lines. But as we've been moving forward with the fundraising for acquiring the three separate parcels, we have included roughly 600,000 in addition to those just transaction and land value costs. And that 600,000 is specifically allocated towards improvements that need to be made on the property to simply open it for public access. So those are one-time costs. Those aren't reoccurring annual costs. Those are capital costs that happen, at one point, and that would therefore not be included in that larger operating cost. And that 600,000 would come from a combination of fundraising, private fundraising, as well as open space bond funds if approved. And
I think that was the grant. Oh, sorry, I'm confused. It's another 600,000.
Yes.
You remember this earlier.
Yeah.
That's or what's the title of that?
The community forest grant.
Thank you.
Is also 600,000, and that is going specifically and can only go towards acquisition of the property. So we have a large number of funding sources, and they can each be used in specific ways. So
Thanks.
Be really
That would make
clear.
an excellent slide for.
Yes, that would be another good one. Yeah, so that 600,000 is coming from other sources outside of that federal funding and would go towards things like reducing hazards and immediate improvements that would be required to do, as well as things that are important for site circulation and public safety.
So the stuff that Martin just mentioned, the removal and whatnot, that comes out of
the 600,000 that is part of the acquisition budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, anyone else from the media beyond
That would only be going towards
slip
buying
on us?
the 600,000 for the
Okay.
grant.
They just happen to be the same
They
number.
just-
Right. No, I was getting two different acquisitions confused in my head because I thought
Sorry.
land acquisition and then access.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've got the cost of the land acquisition at roughly 3.2 million. And so the community forest grant is contributing to that 3.2 million. And then we've got the 600,000 that is for the improvements that have to happen after acquisition. And that piece is coming from a mix of funding sources.
Okay.
Yeah, does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Looking forward to the slide.
Yeah, lots of slides.
Any other questions from anyone?
Kaylee, will you be discussing how the revenues are distributed this Thursday? I mean, will they be distributed directly against ongoing operational costs, or are they going to be placed somewhere else?
For that, at the Parks Board meeting?
Or the October 4th meeting, which one are you talking about,
I'm
Andrew?
not sure which one. I just was wondering
Okay.
when they're going to
Some
be
point in the
discussing.
future.
Yeah, I think that would probably happen at one of the future meeting. Yeah, if I fully understand your question, I think that would probably be discussed later after the October 4th meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? All right, are we ready to open the public comment period and set the public hearing?
Oh, yeah, yes, I think that's a great idea.
Okay, I will second that motion. Any further discussion, public comment on the motion?
Where can people go to submit public comment on this?
Missoula County Voice,
Right.
always the answer to anything.
Okay. Martin, that might be of interest. Missoula County Voice.
I'll throw it out there. Thanks a lot.
Okay, we have a motion to second, had public comment. Let's go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Okay. Public comment period is open and the public hearing is set. Is there anything else we need to discuss today, folks? All right. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. We'll be done.
Thanks, Katie.
Yeah, thank you.